Professor Robert Flint, Anselm, was the founder of that kind of argumentation which, in the opinion of many, is alone entitled to be described as a priori or ontological. He reasoned thus: the fool may say in his heart, "There is no God," but he only proves thereby that he is a fool, for what he says is self-contradictory. Since he denies that there is a God, he has in his mind the idea of God, and that idea implies the existence of God, for it is the idea of being that which a higher can be conceived. That then which a higher cannot be conceived cannot exist merely as an idea, because what exists merely as an idea is inferior to what exists in reality as well as in idea. The idea of a highest being which exists merely in thought is the idea of a highest being which is not the highest even in thought, but inferior to a highest being which exists in fact as well as in thought. This reasoning found unfavorable critics even among the contemporaries of Anselm, and has commended itself completely to few. Yet it may fairly be doubted whether it has been conclusively refuted, and some of the objections most frequently used against it are certainly inadmissible. It is no answer to it, for example, to deny that the idea of God is innate or universal. The argument merely assumes that he who denies that there is a God must have an idea of God. There is also no force, as Anselm showed, in the objection of Gaunilon, that the existence of God can no more be inferred from the idea of a perfect being, that the existence of a perfect island is to be inferred from the idea of such island. There neither is nor can be an idea for an island which is greater and better be, than any other that can be ever be conceived. Anselm could safely promise that he would make Gaunilon a present of such island when he had really imagined it. Only one being, an infinite, independent, necessary being, can be perfect in the sense of being greater and better than every other conceivable being. The objection that the ideal can never logically yield the real, that the transition of thought to fact must be in every instance illegitimate, is merely an assertion that the argument is fallacious. It is an assertion which cannot fairly be made until the argument has been exposed and refuted. The argument is that a certain thought of God is found necessarily to imply his existence. The the objection that existence is not a predicate, and that the idea of God who exists is no more complete and perfect than the idea of God who does not exist, is perhaps not incapable of being satisfactorily repelled. Mere existence is not a predicate, but specifications or determinations of existence are predicable. Now, the argument nowhere implies that existence is a predicate. It implies only that reality, necessity, and independence of existence are predicates of existence, and it implies this on the ground that existence in re can be distinguished from existence in conceptu, necessary from contingent existence, self-existence from the derived existence. Specific distinction must surely admit of being predicated. That exclusion that the exclusion of existence, which here means real and necessary existence, from the idea of God does not leave us with an incomplete idea of God is not a position, I think, which can be maintained. They take away existence from among the elements in the idea of a perfect being. The idea and the idea becomes either the idea of non-entity of, or the idea of an idea and not idea of a perfect being at all. Thus, the argument of Anselm is warrantably represented as an argument of four terms instead of three. Those who urge the objection seem to me to prove only that if our thought of God is if our thought of God be imperfect, a being or a being who merely realist, that the thought of the thought would be an imperfect being. But there is a vast distance between this truism and the paradox that an unreal being may be an ideally perfect being.